I'd like to welcome you all to this session of Pros Who Know 2023, Cart.com and ProShip, the future of third-party logistics, next level growth strategies. With me today, one second here. With me today, I've got Lars Anderson, Will Carver, and myself, Justin Kramer. Lars, do you mind giving us an introduction of yourself?
Sure, thanks, Justin. So I'm Lars Anderson, I'm VP of Sales here at Cart.com. Oversee our sales, partnership, and marketing team for our fulfillment business unit at Cart. I was with the predecessor that Cart acquired, FB Flurry and Snowfall Technologies. I was on the management team of that company that we sold to Cart at the end of 2021, and is for all intents and purposes now kind of the Cart, the fulfillment BU within Cart.com. So excited to be here today and get to participate.
Well, we're glad to have you. Will, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course. My name is Will Carver. I am the customer success specialist working with Cart.com, and as Lars had mentioned, the predecessor FB Flurry as well for about the last 2 years. I also work with about 25 3PLs presently as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Will, and welcome. And I'm Justin Kramer. Many of you may know me. I'm one of the co-founders of ProShip, and I have been designing, implementing, deploying, and selling shipping software for the past 20 plus years. Little housekeeping. We do have handouts for you. I think everybody loves to come to a show and actually get takeaways with it. So if you look in the application, you'll see that there's multiple handouts. One of those handouts actually is the slide deck that we're using today. So people usually ask for it. We are just putting it in there in advance now. Another area in there is the questions section. We will be trying to weave in questions. So the earlier you get your questions in, the better. And also, as we look at the agenda, right, we're going to start with some basics about partnering with a 3PL. We'll look at some features that could be available. We'll talk about technology. It was one of the things that the poll shows is technology is an important factor, maybe not the most important factor. We'll talk about cost-effective growth. We'll have an opportunity to go through closing thoughts, and any of those questions that you added that we have not had a chance to get to, we will have an area at the end to actually go through those. So again, I encourage you, ask questions often. I've even been in some of them where a question has been worked into an early stage and we've gotten a follow-up question as part of that. So in many cases, though, we're not sitting in the same room or we're going to actually pass a mic back and forth. We do have that ability to have a little bit of a conversation. Okay, and with that, our first topic of today is going to be basically a highlight. You know, why a 3PL? And I think in this case, you know what? We're going to start with the guy who's got all the knowledge here, Lars. Can you tell us why and when you might want to partner with a 3PL?
Yeah, I think there becomes a natural decision point for this, and it's either one or two things. It's, you know, well, let me start with you're fulfilling internally, and the two biggest blockers to scalability are management of your labor and then technology. So those are the two biggest kind of blockers. And as you think about kind of scaling your business, and there's not really like a perfect level, really the order level and things like that vary by the type and complexity of the product itself. But it typically comes to a tipping point in terms of, listen, just from a management perspective of managing both the human capital as well as the technology layers become unfeasible, and also the level of investment on the tech side.
Yeah, I will say one thing to those of you who are just now considering a 3PL, or maybe are considering how do I use a 3PL nowadays. I think one of the areas where we've seen a lot of success, especially during the last couple of tumultuous years, is the fact that though a 3PL can handle probably every SKU you have, sometimes if you're adding a new SKU, a new product type, one that if you've got warehouses that are used to smaller items, maybe apparel, and now all of a sudden you've got electronics or you've got larger items, going to a 3PL for that type of SKU is one of those areas that we're seeing a lot more companies actually pick up on, because it allows them to really take advantage of these things. Will, did you want to add anything to why and when?
Well, I think it's important to note as well that it's not just the large clients that we see partnering with a 3PL. I think it's advantageous for big and small businesses that are, potentially looking for additional support or additional expertise and help in helping to manage their clients. So there's not a volume or a throughput that would make this easier. This is going to be something that benefits the larger and the smaller companies.
So let's go back to you. There's clearly an advantage and a disadvantage to splitting some of your stuff out. So kind of a multifold question here. If I'm going to use a 3PL, do I have to push everything to them? And if I do or don't, what are the advantages and disadvantages to either of those models?
So we have in most cases it's not advantageous to split because you have split shipments. There can be cases in which you have single products, and it's usually due to the size of the product that they're going to be what we call ship-alones. And so those being in a different facility is completely fine. But typically speaking, you don't want to be splitting SKUs because of it's just you're gonna have split shipments, higher freight costs on the outbound side. So we'll see, into the first point too, it's kind of like the why of if you have a lower SKU set and you want to go multinodal, 3PLs can support that, right? Whereas if you're doing it yourself, going and investing in a build out, going and taking a new lease out, going and building new technology on that, like for example, we have 14 facilities right now, so we can help support kind of that piece of it. From if you're going to be going multinodal, but I generally don't think there's a lot of advantage into splitting out specific SKUs unless again they're shipping alone.
That's a great term, ship alone. I think we all know what type of things ship alones are, how they could actually be identified within your organization, but I don't think I've heard many retailers or manufacturers really talk about the concept of a ship alone. Let's move on to, so if I'm a shipper, what kind of things should I be looking for? What kind of checklists? Let's say you no longer worked at Cart, you were pulled away by some really rich retailer. What would you be looking for in a 3PL to help them out?
Yeah, I think the biggest pieces are the level of trust. I mean, and I know that seems simple, but it's the level of trust you get. And the feeling that there's going to be a true partnership there. So knowing that the 3PL is really a true extension of your company, understands your brand in and out. When you call, you have the ability to call into someone and not drop in a ticket, right? So like we have people in our facilities who represent our clients and are employed by Cart and represent our clients in our specific facilities, but not going through a ticketing system. Not any kind of barriers there are really I'd say is kind of step number one. Step number two is the technology. So the technology is not only allowing and ensuring that it's going to promote where you are today and is feasibility and access around integration. Those integrations easy to complete. It's a team in house to complete those. Are the guardrails in place on the WMS aspects to ensure their correct checks and balances are made? But then the next piece is, as you're thinking about, and I think this is important, is when considering is not only, I think people look at 3PLs as kind of a cost center. They don't actually have to be a cost center. They can be a revenue generator in the sense of your 3PL has the technology to connect into a multitude of marketplaces. You can unlock value by integrating into their software. So it is that piece there. And the last piece, which is obviously an important piece, is does it make sense financially? So and there's a range of people price kind of across the board, but does it make sense for you as the retailer financially to make that leap?
Excellent. Lars, staying with you here, can you talk about what success looks like, or some examples of some successful partnerships you've seen in the past?
Yeah, I think I'd go back to what I was alluding to is as you're thinking about your business today, and if I was kind of going back to your original question, is, you know, typically speaking, you're thinking on a growth plan. Is your 3PL able to both operationally support your as you're scaling? So they have the space. If they don't have the space, are they willing to take down new space? But also, are they already into or thinking about being involved in the retailers or marketplaces or selling channels that you want? As we all know, customers no longer are affiliated with specific marketing channels. Customers buy where the product is available and easy to get. So is the 3PL already helping you kind of think about that, facilitating it technology-wise and facilitating it from an operational perspective? There are operational characteristics that go into each one of these separate channels. You know, packing stuff, shipping labels, specific packing SOPs. Is the 3PL already able to do that? And maybe they're not doing it in the channels that you want, but are they able to facilitate that for you, so that you're not having to then go plug in other types of technology, right? And creating this web. Is the 3PL not just the 3PL itself in terms of just picking and packing? Are they unlocking other things? So we've seen, you know, characteristics in terms of our business was historically over the last 23 years started out as direct to consumer, and now all of our customers have both D2C and B2B exposure. We have 1 or 2 customers that are solely B2B, shipping to big box retailers, but every single one of our customers now has B2B kind of reach, because again, they want to reach the customers in any single kind of channel they can. So it's being able to kind of think through and say, is this fulfillment center not only right for me now, but right in the future?
Yeah, and as you talk through that, I'm going to bring back in the ship alones and things of that nature. As we start to look at the type of products that are being shipped, we know that there are different needs, and that might be a reason you go to a 3PL. If you're seeing an increase in your B2B, you're probably seeing an increase in palletized goods being shipped and LTL usage. If you are a manufacturer or something like that who's used to doing B2B, and now you're starting up a B2C, a direct-to-consumer solution, now all of a sudden you need less pallets, you need a lot more tri-walls and ability to and conveyor into trailers and things of that nature. So there's definitely good reasons, both from the business to business as well as the business to consumer or direct consumer, to do that. So last question in this segment here. We've talked about all these good things. We've talked about, you know, how we can have trust and synergy and benefits and reduce costs and all that. Let's talk about the bad things that can happen and what to avoid.
So yeah, I think you have some of the points here is, you know, labor at the end of the day is the biggest expense, right? And so if you see pricing as people are getting in response to RFPs, typically the level of service aligns with the pricing. That's not always your high and your highest and your lowest. Typically, you're going to be outliers, or you know, your lowest is typically aligned with the service. Your high, once you go high, that may not be highest in service, but we all have the same cost basis in terms of in terms of what we're paying in wages. Now it fluctuates obviously from state to state, county to county, things like that. But by and large, if you're getting a huge variance in terms of pricing, it then begs the question of, you know, why? What assumptions is that 3PL making in your business? Because if they priced it incorrectly and they're assuming, you know, how we think about it, units per an hour or number of heads allocated to the specific account within the warehouse, if they're pricing incorrectly and they're giving you too low of a quote, you then go and you take that and you search after the lowest quote, and you're in a position where they can't fulfill because on the promise, because they didn't staff to how they think that your processes work. They increase your prices. So these are all things I actually think through. I've seen a couple of cases in which people have chased price, which honestly, if someone can do it, they've thought about it properly, I always tell someone to go with the lowest provider if that provider has thought about it properly. Let's say that's a big piece. The second piece is making sure there is a product fit. So can ensure that the 3PL has experience shipping your product set. So for examples, if you require lots and expirations, do they have lot tracking? If you have if there becomes a need to go back and pull back full lots, do they have that ability to host that data in their system? Those are just things to kind of think about. And then the last thing I'll say, this is to avoid is, and I'd say that posing it in kind of a different way is ensure you do is visit the location. You don't theoretically have to go to the location where your product's going, but visit one of the locations where they're operating to understand, see the morale of the people within the building, see how their managers are interacting, see how they're picking and packing, see how products treated. We encourage our clients to come into our facilities and be involved. I don't think you need to be in the same state or vicinity of your facility. That's why you hire a 3PL, but I do think it's important to visit the facilities.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I will say that I've experienced one customer where they use a 3PL, but they decided that they were going to keep certain things. The customer in question is a jewelry manufacturer, and one of the things that they offer is the ability to custom design your jewelry, so you can pick the appropriate color, metals, color of inserts, and all of that. Now, clearly, the items that are manufactured that are being sold by the hundreds, right? Those perfect fit for a 3PL. But if you're hand making it and then shipping it to a 3PL, that's not a real cost-effective solution there. But the nice thing is that you can pair that out. Well, did you want to add anything to our conversation here? Yeah,
kind of touching on what Lars was saying about the location. You don't have to visit the one that your product's going to, but at least visit one nearby. From a geographical standpoint, look at the big picture. Look at your market. Does it make sense economically for your client base where your 3PL is going to be located?
Excellent. All right, let's move on to our next topic about what to look at inside a 3PL partner. So, Lars, again, I'm heading back to you here. Any unique benefits that you can look at when you're looking for a 3PL partner?
Yeah, so kind of building on the technology piece is ensuring there's a full level of transparency. So ensuring that you can see, where your orders are, where your product is within the facility, each stage of that product location. Is it on the dock? Is it in racking? Is it an active pickable location? Those levels of visibility and transparency, I think, are required. And like, for instance, we have our own technology that we developed, and so we provide real-time information into that, so clients are able to see that. At this point, the industry has changed. 10 years ago, that wasn't possible, but where we are today, I think that's a huge piece. The next piece is, just being able to be flexible, not only in the tech side, but operationally. So things such as kitting, rebundling, retagging, steaming, things like that. The team is willing and able to kind of support that.
Is every 3PL capable of all those things?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, again, you're capable from a human perspective, but you have the technology that puts in the guardrails to ensure that there are some guardrails and that it's not just the Wild West, right? So putting guardrails around the processes, but everyone's capable of it, right? There's been areas in which we haven't historically done, but we've gotten into, like embroidery, right? A client says, hey, we want to embroider items. Well, we have a team and we get trained up on it, and then we started embroidery. So everyone has the ability to do it as well. It's that the flexibility is there to kind of help promote that. Would be kind of, go ahead.
One of the largest things that we've seen a growth in, especially when it comes to small parcel execution, is healthcare. And with healthcare, one of the biggest challenges we see is cold chain. I'm going to again ask the question, is that the type of solution that you'd expect any 3PL to be able to offer? Or are you looking for 3PLs who have experience in cold chain?
The latter. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, for instance, we don't have cold chain. We have temperature controlled buildings for some of our medicinal products, but we don't have cold chain. There are specialists within the cold chain space. It's not only the warehousing, but it's also the outbound and inbound transportation. So it's a completely different kind of system. So you'd want to partner with someone who has specific, practices and experiences around the cold chain space.
And a good 3PL, just like you did right there, should be able to upfront tell you, we can do this, we don't do that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge capital investment. It's different than being able to like bundle a SKU or repackage or even completing embroidery. Cold storage is a huge level of investment, and there's expertise that is required for that.
Exactly, and there are other things to look at as well. Well, I know you've done a little bit of research on a few things that are often unique.
Well, and honestly, this kind of ties into one of the poll questions at the beginning of the session. We asked what the biggest benefit was, and one of the best answers by and large was simplifying complex shipping challenges. One of the challenges, or one of the complexities rather, is security or certifications such as hazmat. Having a partner that's up to date and clear on these things can make that aspect of your business quite easy. So it seems like that's pretty important to the attendees, the folks we have on the call.
Definitely. So we just talked about a lot of different benefits and things of that nature. Lars, how can all of these different functionalities really enhance the operations for a retailer or a 3PL that's looking to, a retailer or manufacturer that's looking to use a 3PL to really take them to the next level?
So I guess, yeah, one of the things that I'll kind of hit on here that you've noted out is, on the technology piece is starting to leverage. We all know AI is here. It's just a question of how you're able to utilize it and leverage it. So for instance, like right now, we leverage it in terms of around our pick and pack efficiencies. So we derive pick paths that are most efficient for our pickers in our facilities. We're obviously constantly being updated and changed and things like that within our facilities. So being able to leverage that and how are they leveraging it? I'd also say kind of on the freight side as well. How are outbound freight rates have continued to increase over COVID, both base rates and accessorial rates across all the carriers. So how's the 3PL thinking about carrier build out, TMS build out, rate shopping, and essentially optimizing for speed and or price, and ensuring, again, it comes back to technology. Is the technology there to support that? Just not now where we are, but go forward, because the market's continuing to change on the freight side and will continue to change and do so.
What about labor? I know that for the past several years, labor has been pretty tight, and I know that it's always been an advantage of leveraging a 3PL. Is 3PLs usually already have great labor availability?
Yeah, I'd say it's the labor market has fluctuated over the last couple of years. There was a point during COVID just getting people in. Now we're able to get people in, but it's more of a retention and getting good quality people. There's specific things, and I think this goes into kind of one of the prior points I noted of visiting the facility. There's pieces that we put into place around retention. So, the quality people who we want to have in our facility, we create programs to ensure that we're retaining these individuals for the long run. And you have visibility in it when you go into the facility. You can see the programs they're doing, raffles, giveaways, lunches, things like that, into retention, because that's obviously a big piece. Because for us, if we train someone and they're out in a month, we're going to be upside down in terms of the level of investment we put in that individual. So that's a big piece is the retention at this point from a labor perspective.
So the other thing that we talk a lot about during this time of year is carrier rationalization and diversity, things of that nature. Is it true that if I use a 3PL, especially if I use your rates, does that enable me to use more carriers than I might be able to in my own simple warehouse?
Well, we're achieving and getting freight rates based on aggregate volume across our network. So, we're shipping millions and millions of packages each year, whereas, if a retailer is shipping 1 million units a year or a brand shipping 1 million units a year, we're able to offer rates on an aggregate basis to our specific clients. We also are able to, we're also managing and speaking to each of the individual carriers themselves. So we're able to offer a multitude of different carriers. I think it's an important piece of due diligence as you're going through the process, because freight spend ends up being almost 1-to-1 in terms of fulfillment and freight spend. So it's an important piece of due diligence and ensure that you're able to offer what you're offering to your customers on the front end, the fulfillment provider on the back end is able to meet. And they're also able to, again, to be flexible in terms of, like, for instance, we do quote unquote rate shopping, where we pick the lowest cost shipping method based off of the days in transit for that customer. So if a customer needs a package in 2 days and you're fulfilling out of Dallas, well, you don't have to ship 2-day express. You can ship it ground home. Well, if they're in California shipping from Dallas, you need to do express. So it's not always a one set methodology. There's obviously pieces in there that need to be thought about. So again, ensuring just asking kind of the questions, walking through that, and there's flexibility and also technology to support that.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Will, as you mentioned earlier, you deal with a lot of 3PLs and a lot of customers who might be using 3PLs. Do you have any success stories that you could share with us? Names redacted, of course.
Yeah, I sure do. One of my clients works with 75 Fortune 500 businesses from different markets nationwide, and I've had a lot of conversations in the past, a couple of business reviews, and just getting a better understanding of how they utilize, document compliance, and to Laura's point, quality of labor and managing the labor and scaling their volume. They've made constant strides over the last couple of years and continue to grow. And just to see how that compliance aspect and the labor aspect continues to drive their business into a profit margin that they couldn't have imagined 10 years ago. I mean, it's a testament to how well these businesses work, and as they continue to scale, continue to grow, it's just it seems to be positive overall, regardless of the market that they're serving.
Excellent. I do want to bring up, so I'm not going to talk about a specific customer, but I'm going to bring back something Lars mentioned about rate shopping and about using the appropriate carrier and the appropriate carrier service level. And I will tell you that one of the features we see in a lot of our 3PLs is the use of advanced stage shopping. And that is that ability that as trailers are being pulled later in the day, to know what the next pickup time is for that carrier, so that as we're shipping at, let's say, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night, trailer X is pulled, trailer Y and Z are still there. We're still getting the best overall cost for a delivery, regardless of whether, let's use the Dallas origin as a example. It doesn't matter whether it's going to LA, Chicago, New York, anything of that nature. Each package gets individually evaluated in order to select the lowest cost service at that point in time when it's being evaluated. And the answer will change based on whether it's noon or 5 o'clock or 9 p.m. that day. Lars, let's throw it back to you. I know that you guys have got some great case studies and success stories. Would you mind sharing one with us?
Yeah, sure. And I'll just kind of jump into the shared tenant versus single tenant here as well on this slide. So because my case study is around that. So we have 14 facilities today. Other 3PLs will have their set of facilities. What we see, and we've started to do is not only having, clients will come into our facilities and we'll have multi-tenant facilities. So there's multiple tenants within a set facility. What we'll also do is if clients are running their own facility, and they don't want to move out of it, for example, they want to keep the lease, they want to keep the employees there. But again, going back to the two hardest parts about kind of 3PL and logistic businesses, managing human capital and technology, we'll go into the facility and we'll take over, employ their employees and overlay our technology within the facility. So we've done that in the past, actually, in the past 3 months, we've done it twice with PacSun in Ohio, and then we recently did one with a company called JP Outfitters in Blue Ash, Ohio. J. Peterman Outfitters, they had an issue where they just in terms of overall product flow and operational processes, they were maxing out at about 1,000 orders a day. So we overtook the facility, employed their employees, put our technology in there, redid kind of the flow, actually had locations, full accountability of stock, and we've 2x their volume outbounds. So we're fully current. We launched that in August, and we were up and running. They actually signed. That was an interesting one. We actually signed in July, and we were running fully up in their facility within August. So case that's kind of a point around kind of flexibility in terms of it's not a one size fits all in the facility and or keeping within your facility. I think there's two different kind of answers to that as people are thinking about it, they're fulfilling for themselves today.
Excellent. All right, great stuff there. We're just running just a smidge behind here, so I'm going to jump us into the empowerment conversation. And in this case, I guess I'm first up. We're talking about supply chain technologies. There's a lot of different things that we want to look at. There's if you're a large manufacturer with a direct-to-consumer solution, if you're a healthcare provider, or if you're a retailer, there's a lot of different ways to communicate with your 3PLs that your shipping software should be able to assist. And some of that is you may have a large dropship vendor solution. So you have many vendors. Some of those vendors might be via 3PL. So being able to recommend, be able to choose the accounts that you want to ship on, and in some cases, even all the way down to the service level that you want to use, that really is something that you should be able to look for, whether you're outsourcing 100% of your delivery execution or just a part of it. And really the purpose of the multi-carrier shipping software is to streamline that process for you and make it significantly easier. And Lars, you talked about technology, one of those areas where you guys may be ahead, and that's in a novel application of AI at this point in time. Could you talk a smidge more about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I noted kind of before, we're utilizing AI throughout the warehouse from a picking perspective, trying to figure out kind of what's the best path for pickers. These are we have automated facilities and we have manual facilities. So in our manual facilities, just figuring out and configuring the best paths for these individuals to be walking on a daily basis. It's constantly updating. We are trying to figure out other ways in which to apply it. Like I said, I think we all know AI is here to stay. It's just how to leverage it. And so we are internally strategically discussing outside of this application other ways we can apply it as well.
Yeah, I gotta say I love AI, but sometimes I have to just say, let's face it, AI is really the application of all this machine learning work that you've heard everybody doing for the past decade. Right. So it isn't, though we may now be applying it in revolutionary ways, it has been an evolutionary technology that has been in the works for more than a decade. Sure. All right. And Lars, let's go back to you again here. How easy is it for 3PL to keep the uniqueness between clients, right? So if I'm a a high-end couture brand versus I am a value brand. And therefore I have different handling and processing requirements. How hard is that for a 3PL to separate, or should it be?
I mean, it shouldn't be hard. So we have, and I guess I'll give kind of the example of how we do it, because just because that's what I'm obviously more knowledgeable in terms of how we're applying it. But we have business rules and cases around the channels in which those orders are generated. So whatever channel orders are coming in through, and from those channels you can assign specific rules, such as the generation of specific packing slips, how the orders can be packed out, GS1 labels if that's required, any other applications that are assigned to it. Again, so it kind of comes back to the first point: is you have the technology there, the operational piece, the operator, when they're packing out, shouldn't have to go through a decision-making process. Those decisions should already be made for them from the technology, such that all they do is they see exactly what they're supposed to do. You want to mitigate any decision making, because that then leaves open room for errors, right? So it's really not that big of a deal if you have the guardrails in place to ensure that the operators themselves know the exact steps of what's to occur per the specific business selling channel.
Excellent, excellent. All right, let's move on to, so let's say I've made my decision. I want to go ahead and I want to use a 3PL. Just like with anything, how you onboard kind of makes or breaks that entire first year, in some cases, the entire relationship. What should we be looking for if we're going to onboard to a 3PL?
First of all, the scoping, the operational and tech scoping was done during the sale process. So what was the level of detail and kind of depth done on the operational and tech side, such that you have a roadmap of what that's going to look like, and then that there is a true implementation team, that you're going to have a sole individual who's going to be helping kind of guide through the process. So logistics and fulfillment is a little bit different in the sense of it's not just plug and play technology. I mean, technology, if you have the API keys, you just integrate. There's the operational component here of setting up the spaces, building out racking, all the different types of things. So ensuring that there's a sufficient team in place, that the resources are there to ensure that you're hitting those deadlines of what you've noted. So upfront due diligence, and then resources that are going to be applied to your account as you're walking through the process.
Excellent, excellent. Like I said, we're running a little behind here. I'm going to skip ahead. Will, again, we know that in our organization, you deal with a lot of 3PLs. What is, when it comes to a tech stack, what are some of the things you look at the 3PLs that we work with?
Consistently growing carriers, consistent expansion rather with new carriers, whether it's last mile or regionals or something like that. It seems like that's the most important thing to the 3PLs that I work with presently. Yeah, and being able to, as Lars mentioned earlier, have all that quality tech stack combined with a great carrier selection through a multi-carrier shipping software really kind of pulls it all together. Okay, let's go ahead and let's jump to strategies. Hold on, there we go. Little technical difficulties. All right, Lars, how can 3PLs help redefine what cost-effective growth means, and how do you all provide something that allows a company to grow hand in hand?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going back to the first slide. When you get to the point of managing the labor and the investment, like, we're the ones that are making the investment in terms of the technology, right? So there's a cost-effective nature in it, because as you're scaling up, typically what we do is also, we don't penalize, like, as clients are growing, we're not going to penalize them for growth. If anything, we're going to give them more attractive rates because there's more volume there. So with scale, actually becomes more aggressive pricing, because as we and to provide more clarity in that, when we go pick and pack, like if you could literally think about it, if a picker is able to go out and get more volume within one tote or one cart, it's more efficient for us than if they're going and picking a limited number of orders. So, there's a level of investment within the technology as well as just the human capital, that our partners don't have to be making.
And some of that investment, you mentioned earlier that sometimes you all are taking over more of that software stack. So that includes connectivity to other parts like Shopify or eBay, but it sounds like you guys do a lot more.
We have other kind of like we essentially have a multitude of channels in which we're connected to out of the box. So once our system is 100% API, but we support different integrations, file, SFTP, et cetera. We then map it and translate it to our APIs. We're still always using our APIs, but we can support any level of integration. We then have within our OMS are connected to multitude of different channels, selling channels, and such that we have to have the necessary catalog data there for our clients, but we can turn on those selling channels and manage MSRP by the specific selling channel. So I think that's an important thing to think about as people are, hey, I want to be launching in this retailer, I want to be going into this specific marketplace. Having that ability to do so and do so quickly is definitely a capability that I would be looking out for as you're searching for a provider.
Okay, and our last question in this segment, Will, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the innovations you've seen? What are some of the information you would really want a retailer or manufacturer, or healthcare to think about as they try to look at growth, cost controls, and measuring success?
To think about the ebb and the flow of the year, reducing redundant or eliminating rather redundant investments or underutilized resources.
Excellent. Yeah. And I always want to say, hey, look, a lot of fast growing retailers or companies with seasonal shift will use 3PLs, and the ones that do that will often plan exactly when they want to add them, whether they're using them for an entire segment of their market, let's say West Coast, East Coast, Southern, anything like that, or whether they only use them in a certain time of the year to offload or for a specific ship alone type item. Lars, anything you want to add to that?
I think you guys covered kind of the main points. I would though look at these types of partnerships. There's a lot of lift into it. There's a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of investment that's made. So we approach it, and I'd say as a retailer approaching as a long-term relationship, just because of the capital investment that goes into moving product, et cetera.
All right, and to keep us just about on time, let's do some takeaways. Lars, what's the main thing you want our listeners, our viewers, whether they're live with us today or listening to us on YouTube a couple of weeks from now, what's the primary thing you think they should take away from our conversation today?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of providers within the space now, versus what it was 10, 15 years ago. So there's a lot of solutions that are within the marketplace. I'd say, figure out, do the due diligence of who is the correct provider for you, not who is the correct provider. There are, we're not, Cart.com isn't the correct provider for every single retailer. And I'll tell people, listen, this isn't a good fit for you. So it's doing the due diligence, making sure the true partnership is there, from a customer success perspective, from product knowledge perspective, and then ultimately the technology. Is the technology able to not only be able to support you today, but customizable for your future as well? So there's like I said, there's a lot of options out there, but as I like to think about it, is finding the provider who's flexible and can customize to your business needs, because your business today is likely going to change from, in a year, right? And so you can't be making a decision. We see people who make a decision short term, and then in a year that specific provider is not able to support them because of scale, because of technology, et cetera. So thinking through all that now, and walking through that, I think is what I would push people to do. Although it takes more time, I think it's a prudent exercise.
Excellent. And Will, your final thoughts?
I think it's pretty cool sitting here with Lars and thinking of the other 3PLs that I work with on quite nearly a day-to-day basis. Back at the beginning of this session, we had a poll, and 20% of the folks that were attending indicated that they're not presently working with a 3PL. So if you're not presently working with a 3PL and the content of this session has intrigued you, remember to ask questions, do the research. To Lara's point, your due diligence to find the right fit, to find something that hits every bullet point is extremely important. Don't settle for something that's halfway there when you can get somebody that's 100%, has your business and the best interest of your business in mind. And like I said before, regardless of the size of your organization, there's a 3PL solution that's more apt than others to handle your business specifically. So it's out there. It's worth the research. It's worth the time to take care of the scalability of your company. So thank you.
Excellent. And I don't think that my takeaway is going to surprise anybody who's followed me on LinkedIn or anything like that. It's about the technology. When you look at partnering with anybody for your fulfillment needs, their ability to leverage great technology from the inbound of those orders, the pick, pack, handling of those orders, all the way to the most cost-effective means of getting those orders from their facility to your customer. I think that understanding how well that is structured within an organization is key to finding a great valued partner within that area. All right, I do want to remind everybody there are handouts associated with this, and you may still be able to get a question or two in play here. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's move on to some of the questions that we've received. Lars, this first question goes to you. Are 3PLs capable of handling returns for their clients?
Yes, or they should be. 100%. We have specific departments within each of our facilities where they're trained through the client's SOPs. So we have SOPs for both returns and both for outbound packaging. And so the specific team on the return side will become knowledgeable on the inspection process for a client. We'll design disposition codes based off of the inspection process. So say we get back a kitchenware item that has been opened, and depending on the client's SOP, that may be the disposition code could say opened, and that goes to donation. So 100% they can do it. It's just ensuring that they have the kind of proper practices in place, and the retailers providing with them with information to be successful.
Excellent. All right, it looks like we got another question here that wants us to dig a little deeper. For 3PLs, how do you leverage technology that your operation to ensure that your operations align with the business rules and regulations of your clients who may operate in diverse industries with distinct requirements?
So we will, a client could be shipping into completely separate industries. Let's just take one client, for example. We tie rules and specificities to the channel. We can also have specificities around the SKUs themselves. So the packing slips, the labeling, the pack out will be tied not only to the selling channel. So if they're selling to, just make it up, Dick's Sporting Goods, that could be completely separate from how that package is supposed to be shipped to Hibbett's or to Nordstrom, etc. So our technology, we tie back all the rules such that when we get an order in and on the order payload, we require them, we call it a source code. to include that source code, which then dictates kind of all the downstream processes. During that process, again, it's fail-safe because the operator is not making decisions. Everything is being printed out for them and shown along the way. Now, could they pack it out incorrectly? Sure, but we have packing, in terms of actually what the product looks like, we're doing QC on the outbound to ensure that packaging is being completed properly. So there's the tech piece, but then the piece that is open to the operator's actual packing out of the items, like ensuring that they're presented properly. Those are, we're QCing on an hourly basis.
And from a shipping software side, we see a lot of this as well. So 3PLs that use great shipping software have the ability to flag certain things. Let's face it, if you are an aerospace company and you are shipping out, you may need an FAA 18. Will mentioned earlier that there are some dangerous goods requirements, which vary based upon how you're actually moving that document, 49 CFR for ground, IATA requirements for air, and also may vary depending upon the destination country in which those items land, which in North America makes it rather interesting because even though you're 49 CFR, you may end up with Canadian dangerous goods requirements to go along with that as well. These are all things that as long as they're identified during that onboarding process that we mentioned earlier, is definitely something that various parts of the enterprise software stack are really designed to help take care of. So as Lars mentioned, there's certain pick things that you do to meet requirements. There's different pack requirements, and I'm going to say there's also different ship requirements once that pack is done. All right, final question we're going to have time for. If I want to partner with a 3PL, what should I consider in terms of tech requirements related to things like scale, flexibility, and customizations to meet the needs of both me and my customers?
I'm going to answer this, and my answer may be a bit biased, but I do think it's true in the sense of having an in-house solution. So, we have our technology has been developed, it is maintained, enhanced, tested all internally. So our speed is much faster than if you're leveraging going out and using a third-party WMS. So all of our resources are in-house, and we're able to be quick and enabled. So I'd say look for a couple of things to look for that I would look for is out-of-the-box integrations. What are out-of-the-box integrations they have? And when someone says out of the box, what does that mean? Is it an installation within a day or a month is a piece? What integrations and do they support? Can they support API? Can they support file? All of that kind of piece of the pie. And then also from a tech pieces, what are the channels, or where do you see your business going to, where do you see your business going, and what is that what are those requirements? And asking them, hey, do you support this today? Are you able to support this? If you don't, is this on the roadmap? Are kind of the pieces. And then, lastly, what I'd say is once you've gone through, we give references out once we've gotten to the point of, hey, this deal is going to go, we're at the point of signing. We're not going to give references out at the beginning point because we value our clients' relationships, and I think people will appreciate that. Not everyone asks for them, but we do it at the end. It's finding a client reference that's similar in nature to your business. So, are you, for instance, we fulfill for Tom's shoes. Maybe you do shoes. Well, do you want to talk to Tom's and say, hey, how does, you guys are selling in channels that I want to get into. How is Cart or whoever the 3PL supported that? I think that's an important piece to kind of check off the box as you're going through kind of negotiation process.
Excellent. All right. And with that, that's all the time we have for questions. We want to thank all of our attendees today and all of our listeners in the future for sticking with us. There are more Pros Who Know coming, so please ensure that you attend to all the ones you want to today. And with that, I'd like to thank Lars, thank Will, and thank everybody for attending. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.